Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to try and do something a little bit different. We're taking a topic that sounds, frankly, incredibly dry. The IBM Maximo Manage V8.0 implementation exam.
Yeah, not exactly a thrilling title.
No, but we're going to prove that it's actually about how the physical world, keeps turning.
It's a bold claim, but when you look at what this software actually does, you're not wrong. I mean, we aren't just talking about a database.
Yeah.
We're talking about the operating system for factories, for transit systems, for the power grid.
Exactly. It's the invisible hand that makes sure the lights stay on and the trains run on time. But for our listeners today, and specifically those learners who are staring down the barrel of this exam, the C1000-183, the stakes are a lot more personal. We looked at the stats you pulled, and this is not a casual quiz.
No, it's a rigorous certification. And the numbers, they really tell a story of pressure. You've got 61 questions.
Okay.
And you have just 90 minutes to answer them.
Let's do the math on that. That's, what, a minute and a half per question?
Yeah.
That doesn't leave a lot of time for deep philosophical pondering.
It doesn't. And that time limit, it changes your strategy completely. You can't just rely on memorizing definitions.
Right.
If you're spending 3 minutes trying to recall a specific menu path, you've already lost. You need to understand the architecture of the system so well that the answer feels, well, intuitive.
To spot the wrong answers right away.
Immediately. And with a passing score of 67%, so you need about 41 correct answers, there is very, very little margin for error.
And it costs about $200 US to sit for it. Nobody wants to pay that twice.
Absolutely not. So our mission today isn't to read you the textbook. It's to decode the logic behind the questions. If you understand how Maximo thinks, how it structures the world, the answers stop being guesses.
They start being obvious.
Exactly.
I like that. How Maximo thinks. So let's start at the very beginning. The big bang of the system, if you will, the architecture. In the source material, there's this constant tension between two concepts, the organization and the site.
This is the single most common stumbling block. If you don't get this distinction clear in your head, you will likely fail the exam.
Okay, so lay it out for us. What's the fundamental difference?
Think of the organization as the suit. It's the corporate headquarters, the legal entity, the financial umbrella.
The suit.
Then think of the site as the boots. It's the physical branch, the factory floor, the specific GPS location where work actually happens.
Okay, suits versus boots. That helps.
Yeah.
So let's look at the birth of an organization. We saw a question that asks, what's mandatory when you're setting one up? And obviously, you need a unique ID.
Right.
But the second requirement was a base currency.
Right. And this is where people get tripped up. They think, well, I buy parts at the site level, so shouldn't currency be at the site?
That would be my first thought, yeah.
But zoom out for a second. Imagine you're a multinational company. You have a site in Berlin using euros and a site in Tokyo using yen. If every site just operated in its own little bubble, how would the CEO ever know the total value of their inventory?
You'd have to sit there with a calculator and today's exchange rate, trying to add it all up manually. It would be a complete nightmare.
A consolidated reporting disaster. That is why base currency is an organization-level decision. It defines the financial DNA of the entire entity.
The DNA, I like that.
It ensures every transaction, labor, inventory, purchasing can be rolled up to a single common baseline.
That makes total sense. So if the organization is the financial umbrella, let's look at the site. The exam questions highlight that inventory storerooms and work order auto numbering happen at the site level.
This brings us back to physics. An inventory storeroom is a physical space. It exists inside a fence line.
You can't just teleport a pump from New York to London.
You can't. So the balances, the actual count of how many bolts do I have, must be managed locally at the site.
That seems straightforward. But what about the auto numbering? Why is that local? Why not just have one giant list of work order numbers for the whole company?
Imagine the chaos. You create a work order in Chicago, and it's number 1,000. 5 seconds later, someone in Paris creates one, and it's 1,001.
Then you create another one in Chicago, and it's 1,002.
Your numbers are jumping all over the place, and if you call the help desk and say, I have a problem with ticket 1,000, they might pull up a ticket from a completely different continent.
Ah, I see.
Precisely. By keeping auto numbering at the site level, Site A has its own meaningful sequence 1, 2, 3, and Site B has theirs. It keeps the data contextual.
Okay, so a good rule of thumb for the exam is, if it involves money or legal stuff that rolls up, it's probably an organization.
Yep.
If it involves physical items or specific work tickets, It's a site.
That is a very solid rule of thumb to take into that test center.
Okay, so we've built the house, we have our organizations and our sites, but right now it's just a static database. Nothing's actually moving. We need to give the system a brain. We need automation.
The brain is a great metaphor. Maximo is an event-driven system. It waits for things to happen and then reacts based on rules you define.
And one of the key ways it reacts is through service level agreements, or SLAs. Now, I usually think of an SLA as a contract like, we promise to fix this in 4 hours.
Right.
But in Maximo, it's a piece of logic. We saw a question about what makes an SLA actually work. Like, why would an SLA fail to fire?
This is the classic troubleshooting question. You've built it, you've defined the commitments, but a ticket comes in and nothing. The timer doesn't start. Why?
Yeah, which one?
The exam points to 2 specific conditions. First, and this sounds insultingly simple, but it catches people out all the time, is the status.
Is it plugged in?
Basically, the SLA must be in active status. You can draft the most complex, beautiful SLA in the world, but if it is still in draft or... The second condition is that it has to match the criteria.
So the locking key.
Exactly. If your SLA is written for high priority pumps in building A and a ticket comes in for a low priority fan in building B, the SLA stays asleep. The status turns the system on, but the criteria is the key that fits that specific lock.
Okay, so don't overthink it until you've checked the basics. Now, moving deeper into the brain, let's talk about workflows. This is the flowchart of how work gets done. There was a specific question about something called the condition node.
Ah, the traffic cop of the workflow.
The source material says this node evaluates a SQL expression to decide the route. Now, pause there. For the listener who manages a warehouse and doesn't write code, SQL expression sounds terrifying.
It does.
What are we actually looking at here?
It sounds more technical than it really is. Think of SQL as just the language the database speaks. A condition node is just asking a true or false question in that language. It's like a bouncer at a club.
A bouncer.
How so?
Well, the bouncer has one rule. Are you on the list? It's a yes or no question. In Maximo, the condition node asks, is the estimated cost of this repair greater than $500? If the answer is yes.
That's true. The bouncer points you to the left door, and maybe that routes the ticket to a manager for approval.
And if the answer is no?
That's false. The bouncer points you to the right door, automatic approval, send it straight to the technician. The condition node allows the system to make decisions so humans don't have to.
It removes the bottleneck. But what happens when things get ignored? Say the workflow routes it to a manager, and that manager is, I don't know, on a beach in Fiji.
That is the nightmare scenario. The work sits there, stagnant. That is where escalations come in.
The source material mentions something called cron task here. Again, that sounds like jargon.
It is jargon. A cron task is just a fancy way of saying a scheduled timer. See, most of Maximo is passive. It waits for you to click save.
Okay.
Escalations are different. They're the only part of the system that is active. They wake up every few minutes based on that timer and scan the database.
So it's like a security guard doing rounds.
Exactly. It walks around checking the doors. It looks for things like, is this ticket older than 48 hours? Or is the status still waiting for approval? And if it finds one, it takes action.
Like what?
It can send an angry email to the manager, or it can reassign the ticket to someone else. It ensures that silence doesn't mean the process has died.
Okay, so to recap the brain, SLAs set the expectations, workflows guide the traffic using true-false logic. And escalations are the safety net that kicks you in the shin if you aren't moving fast enough.
That is a perfect summary.
Okay, we've done the high-level architecture. We wired up the brain. Now I want to get my hands dirty. Let's talk about boots on the ground. All this configuration means nothing if the technician can't actually use it.
Right. This is where structure meets reality.
One concept that came up is the nested job plan. Now, nesting sounds like Russian dolls, putting things inside other things. Why do we need that?
It's all about efficiency and safety. A job plan is just a list of steps. Step 1, open valve. Step 2, replace seal. Simple enough. But imagine you have a safety procedure, lockout, tagout, that you legally have to do for every electrical job.
You don't want to type that into 500 different job plans manually.
Exactly. Because what happens when the safety regulation changes next year? You'd have to find and update all 500 of those documents. It's a huge error risk.
That sounds miserable.
With nesting, you create one master job plan called electrical safety prep. Then inside your other job plans, whether it's fixing a motor or replacing a light, you just nest that safety job plan inside.
And if the rules change, you just update the one master plan.
And it propagates everywhere instantly. It's the write once, use everywhere philosophy.
That makes life a lot easier.
Yeah.
Now, what about the technician in the field? We saw questions about inspections.
Yeah, inspections in Maximo have really evolved. We aren't just talking about a digital clipboard where you tick pass or fail.
No.
The exam specifically asks about meter readings and photographic evidence.
Which feels like a massive shift. It's the difference between a technician writing, "It looks bad," and actually
Yeah.
proving it.
Exactly. It looks bad is subjective. One person's bad is another person's fine. But if you require a photo or if you require them to type in the exact temperature reading, you're capturing objective data.
And connecting the dots here, if I enter a temperature of 200 degrees into that inspection form, can that trigger the logic we talked about earlier?
You nailed it. That meter reading can trigger an escalation or a workflow. The system sees 200 degrees, realizes that's over the limit, and automatically generates an emergency work order. The boots on the ground are directly feeding the brain.
That is really cool. It closes the loop. Now, speaking of loops, let's talk about inventory, specifically the staging action. The source material was very specific about what this does and, more importantly, what it doesn't do.
This is a critical distinction for the exam. Staging is not issuing.
Okay, help me out. If I'm a warehouse manager, what's the difference?
Issuing means the part is gone. It's been paid for, it's left the building, the budget is hit.
It's a financial transaction.
Right. Staging is about logistics. It's about preparation. It means taking the parts off the shelf and putting them in a specific bin for a specific work order.
So it's like reserving a book at the library. I haven't checked it out yet, but nobody else can take it.
Exactly. Imagine a technician drives 2 hours to a remote site to fix a generator. The system says there are 5 gaskets in stock, but when he gets there, the shelf is empty because someone else grabbed them an hour ago.
That technician is going to be incredibly unhappy.
And the company loses money on the wasted trip. Staging prevents that. It creates a hard reservation. It ensures that when the work is scheduled, the physical materials are actually there waiting. It bridges the gap between the digital count and the physical reality.
I love that. Okay, we have a few minutes left and we need to look at the bigger picture. We're stepping out of the core Maximo Manage and looking at the Maximo Application Suite, or MAS.
The evolution to MAS is the big headline for V8.0.
And the big change here is licensing. The exam asks about app points. The text explains it as a pool of credits, but can you break that down?
Sure. In the old days, you bought a license for a specific seat. You were a Manage user. If you wanted to use a different tool, like Maximo Health, you couldn't. You didn't have a ticket for that ride.
Okay.
App points are like a gym membership that gives you access to the whole facility. The organization buys a bucket of points, let's say 1,000 points.
Right.
When you log in, you check out some points from the pool. If you're a power user, maybe you cost 10 points. If you're just checking a status, maybe you cost 5. But here's the key. It's based on concurrent usage.
So it's not about how many people we employ, it's about how many are logged in right now.
Correct. It shifts the focus from ownership to access. If you suddenly need to use a new application like Maximo Predict, you don't need to call a salesperson and sign a new contract. You just use points from your existing bucket. It offers massive flexibility.
That is a game changer for IT departments. Finally, let's touch on one specialized industry solution mentioned in the source: linear assets.
This is for the industries that don't manage things that fit in a box. We're talking about rail tracks, pipelines, roads.
Things that are miles long.
Right, think about it. You can put a barcode on a pump. You can't put a barcode on a 500-mile pipeline. If there's a leak, saying the pipeline is broken is useless. You need to know where.
So how does Maximo handle that?
With Maximo Linear, it introduces dynamic segmentation. It allows you to define work by measure. You can say, repair the pavement from mile marker 10 to mile marker 12.
So it treats the asset as a continuous line rather than a static point.
Exactly. It lets you track costs, labor, and history against specific segments of that line without having to chop the pipeline into a million little records in the database.
Before we go, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought to chew on. We talked about staging the system, saying these parts are reserved. We talked about inspections. This pipe is 200 degrees.
The digital record?
Right. But here's the thought. The system is only as good as the reality it reflects. If Maximo says the parts are staged, but someone moved them without telling the tablet, the logic falls apart. The digital twin breaks.
That is the ultimate challenge of any implementation.
So as you study for this exam, remember, you are learning to build the digital twin. But the real challenge, the one that comes after the certification, is ensuring that digital twin actually matches the physical truth.
That is what separates a good administrator from a great one.
Good luck with the exam. Tackle it with that systematic thinking, keep an eye on the clock, and you'll do great. Thanks for listening to this deep dive.
Goodbye, everyone.